everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and these are two of the cards that I'll be making today. I am using the Pink and Main Birthday Kids stamp set. Both of my cards are standard A2 size cards, so they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Right now I'm just setting up with getting the images stamped with Memento Black Tuxedo ink. I do like to use that the most when I am using alcohol markers, and I ended up stamping 2 sets of all of the images because I couldn't decide if I wanted to use colored pencils or alcohol markers, and I decided to do both. So what I do a lot is I stamp a lot of the images and then I color them at different times. I travel a lot for work. So when I'm on the plane or if I'm in the hotel and I have some downtime, I bring that with me and I can color them. And then I use my scan and cut to cut out the images. And when I do that, then if I don't use them on a card right away, I just stick them in the back of the stamp set and I have them for if I need a card right away or really quick, and I already have the images all stamped out and colored, so I'm ready to go. Now, I am by no means a colorer, so I did not leave this on here, but I was just kind of showing that I use all different types of alcohol markers at the same time. I have Spectrum Noirs, Chameleons, I have Copics, I have some off-brand ones, and some I think, yes, blend better than others, but I just use whatever I feel like using, I guess I will say. Now here I'm using colored pencils, and I know you can't really see because I realize I'm left-handed and the way I have everything positioned you can't see anything, and if I ever want someone to see my coloring I'm going to have to figure out a better way to do it. But the reason why I left this in here was because I wanted to talk about using colored pencils. For me, sometimes I don't like colored pencils because I think they look grainy. One of the ways I found around that kind of grainy look was using blending products. You can use Gamsol and a blending stump or a blending pencil. These images I use the blending pencil, and I really like the blending pencil, but if you see that scratch paper next to me, you got to be careful when you're using the blending pencil, because if you don't kind of wipe it off or go through and draw it off, I guess you want to say, sometimes the color tends to stay on there. So you just want to be careful of that if you're using that you don't end up going with a dark color and blending it into a light color. Here I'm just using my tip from Jennifer McGuire and outlining all of my images. I used my scan and cut to cut them all out, and now I'm just going to go through and outline them all. I like the look of it when they're all outlined. It just kind of makes them look more finished, as Jennifer likes to say. And then here I decided on how I was going to get my card going. This one I decided I wanted for a boy's card, and I had a bunch of paper left over from the March Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month kit, and I decided I was going to use some of those papers for these cards. Now, one of a die that I have is kind of like a frame, and then it cuts that piece out, that white piece that's there. And I wanted this to look kind of like a picture in a frame, like you took a picture at the birthday party and that's what everybody was doing, or, you know, it was just a good time. So I ended up using a stencil that I created with my scan and cut, and I decided I wanted to do some blending with some Distress Oxides. I used Lucky Clover, Squeezed Lemonade, Broken China, Fossilized Amber, and Wild Honey. And this is by no means a beautiful blending job or anything like that. It was just really quick. I just wanted to put some color down there to make kind of a background. The majority of the background is going to be covered with images, so I wasn't too concerned about it looking perfect. I just wanted that background to kind of give you the idea that it was a picture or a photograph. One of the things I really liked about this stamp set is I thought it was really versatile, that you could use it for boys and girls cards. It didn't have to be one or the other. And you could just, depending on what you used and how you used it, you can end up making a card for either one. I was a little sad that I wouldn't be able to use all my sparkle pens and my sequins on this card since I was trying to keep it more of a boy card, but that's okay. I'll live. I decided to use one of the sentiments from the stamp set, It's Your Day, and I stamped that with VersaFine Black Onyx ink. That's my favorite ink to use when you stamping sentiments because I think it gives you a really solid layer and a solid color. And then I just use my tape roll and multimedia matte for the frame. Since it was pretty thin, I didn't want to try to use my tape runner for it. I decided I wanted to pop up with some foam tape that center area, or the picture area, I guess, of the frame, and then I just used the roll tape runner for, or no, I'm sorry, I used the multimedia matte for the glue for the images on there, and then some reverse tweezers I really like to use when I'm, especially with smaller images. I just think it gives you a little more control. And yes, that's my phone sitting there. I needed a weight, and sometimes you got to use what you have on hand, and that's what I had next to me. I usually don't put things in my cards, but I decided to put a sentiment in there. I just used the banner Happy Birthday, and I had that Ink It Up stamp pad sitting over there on my desk, and I decided to put that in there because it's a turquoise color, so I thought it went pretty well with everything else. And then I just put the image in there. So I thought it ended up working out really well and ended up being a really cute card. For my next card, I used some more paper from a different collection from the Flavor of the Month kit, and I used the colored pencil images. I have Prismacolor pencils and colored pencils, and I think when you're using blending tools, you can really get away with cheaper colored pencils, and you can make them look beautiful no matter, even if you're using Crayola colored pencils, because I've used them before in blending tools. So I don't think you have to buy the really expensive ones, especially if you're just starting. I like the Prismacolors, and I do think that you can get beautiful blending without using blending tools with the Prismacolors, but to be honest, sometimes I'm lazy and it's just easier to use the blending tool, so I do. But here I was just deciding what I wanted to do. I cut up a panel, and then I have a border that I was using, and I decided that I wanted it to have another layer to it. So the first layer I made 4 inches by 5 1/4, and the second layer I made 3 1/4 inches by 5, and then I used that same border die on the bottom of it and just tried to line it up to make it cohesive with the other piece that's there. And then I was just playing around with the images, deciding where and how I wanted them. Again, I just used my tape runner. This had quite a few layers to it between the images, and I knew I wanted to use some sequins since this was going to be a girl card. So I didn't want to put a lot of layers. I do end up popping a couple or just one thing up, but I did end up popping something up because I made a mistake and I had to cover it up. But I thought the images were just so sweet, and how they're colored with the colored pencils. I just love the softness of these. So here is where you'll see I stamped the image on the bottom, and then after I stamped it, I don't know if my stamp was still damp, maybe because I had washed it off and I had used it in the last card I had made, but it was not a good solid stamp, and I didn't like the way it looked. So I ended up getting some other pattern paper that I had, and I stamped it on that. It was I guess not a busy pattern paper, you might want to say, so that the image could still be read well. And then I just fishtailed the ends of that, put some foam tape on it, and popped it right over the mistake, and nobody but me and anyone who watches this video will ever know that there was a problem. There's my Spectrum Noir pen. Of course, I had to get that out. And I put the glitter along the actual entire banner that says Happy Birthday, along with the hat, cupcake, the girls' hair bands, and the ribbons on all of the presents. And then from the same collection, from the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month kit, I had Kennedy Gray sequins left, and so I decided I wanted to use some of those. I think maybe because I couldn't use them on the last card, I got a little excessive with them, but it was still cute. It was fine, but there are a lot of sequins on this card. I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking, but I think overall it's a really cute card. So thank you everyone for joining me, and have a great day.